Thank you, Eddie. And John, not to put the pressure on John, but this had better be a really good answer. Not at all. John, please.
Thank you, Mark. And I've had plenty of time to think about this. It's very good. And you know, I'm very fortunate because I work in Pembroke. I'm not a fly-by-nighter. The football club next door, I had the honour of being made a life member. I've given 20 years service to them. I'm patron of the cricket club there. I've given 20 years service. I love this place, I really do. I look from my home and I do see the Derwent River. I do see the marina down here. And it's not $1 million home. Well, it's not $1 million house, it's a home. That's what it is. And I love this area. I want to see the environment protected. I'd like to see, as others have said, the River Derwent cleaned up. But I tell you now that I want to look after this place because it's my home and I love it, and it's a small part of a great state. I've travelled in a lot of countries, and you know, there's a bit of each of those countries here somewhere. It doesn't matter if you go east, west, north, south. There's a bit of all those countries right here. We're very, very fortunate, but you know, I'm damn so lucky because I live in Pembroke. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have, and I know that I could go back to our panel, but we do have a range of, thank you all for attending. I'd like to take the opportunity to open up some questions to the floor for our candidates. I would prefer, if I could have you think for a moment, to continue in the debate format, and if you could frame your questions so that we could ask them to each of the candidates, because I think it's a fair and democratic process that we'll be able to structure a couple of questions. And that's what really I'd ask for, because we had hoped to finish at 8:30. We didn't start for about 15 minutes, so I think we've still got another 15 minutes on, and that's fine. Grand Designs is on the ABC, not that I... That's what I'm giving up, and that's okay. No, not at all. So if I could ask, please, if I could ask you to also identify yourselves, of course, and I know that very many of you in the room are very well known, but to the rest of our community members here, and ask a question to the panel, please.
Thanks, Mark. Ross Butler, I'm a member for Franklin, the accidental politician, former teacher and taxi driver. One of the most important things I think is to prevent corruption is the cost of elections and public funding. I would like the panel, the members, the candidates to indicate whether they would support, firstly, public funding, but very limited public funding up to the extent of about $10,000 per candidate in the House of Assembly. I know for the LegCo you have about 12,000 limit, I understand. When I stood in 2006, I suspect that one of my rivals spent over $150,000, would have had to have spent that given the number of posters and pamphlets and advertising and so on. And this, I think, makes our politics so open to corruption, and whether you would ban the donations from companies, from businesses to advertising. And finally, would you ban something that I abhor, that's posters, despite the fact I put about 50, well, Bernie and Roger put up about 50 for me, but I'd love to see them banned, having at every post office maybe a notice board where every candidate could have maybe 1 square metre for posters and a statement, or something like that. I think we could do this in a so much more civilised fashion. Sorry, I'm making a speech. I'll leave it now to the candidates whether they would support something along the lines that I have expressed.
Thank you, Ross. I'll stay in the order.
Ross, if I understand the question, do I support public funding for candidates for state elections?
And limited cost.
Yep. The answer is no, I don't support public funding. Do I support a cost as there is for the Legislative Council? Yes, I do support that there would be a limit which would be similar to that of Legislative Council, which is about $12,000. Wonderful, because we can't spend too much. And thirdly, am I sort of in favour of banning posters? Clearly not. I think all those graphic artists that will be out of jobs if we ban posters.
Thank you, James. Richard.
I just concur with the previous speaker.
That's
agree.
Great. Thank you. Sharon.
I agree with Ross. On everything here.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Ross. That's Peter.
Thanks, Mark. Yes, I agree with Ross. I think posters are awful. They shouldn't be allowed. The reason I put them up is because everyone else has got them up. And that's why we do it. But I think it's in the Constitution that we're allowed to, it more or less must be done. We were talking about it last night. I agree that there should be a limit on what a candidate can spend, because it gives the average person, male or female, a chance to have a go at being an elected member. If their funds are unlimited, the ordinary person can't have a crack at becoming a politician. Everyone should be able to stand for public office. I would like to see some sort of arrangement where if someone gives someone else like free rent for an office, that should be included in their costs. Right? Now this is going to happen. I won't go into it. I better not go into it. No, I won't. I'll let you know later on. But I agree with Ross. Something should be done. No posters. I would support that wholeheartedly, because they look awful out in the city, and they can be dangerous. High winds last night. We all lost a couple. They take off. They could hit someone, do some damage. No posters. I agree wholeheartedly with Ross Butler.
Thank you, Peter. Wendy.
I agree with Jim that we should have a limit on our candidates' expenditure, but it should be based on a low limit, you know, not more than, say, $10,000. It shouldn't be funded by the public purse, but it should be funded by candidates and private donations, not company donations. But I do think, as an alternative to the posters, that we should have a brochure like they have for council elections, produced by the Electoral Commission, where the candidates get to say in a couple of hundred words what their policies are. You can have a small picture there if that's really important, but you should be really voting based on the policies, not what the photo looks like. But I think it is in the public interest that every voter knows what their candidates stand for. And I have been concerned in this election so far as to what the coverage is. I haven't heard what all of these candidates stand for. This is the first opportunity tonight, and I think it's a great opportunity that Jim has organised this. Thank you.
John.
Thank you. I agree. I think candidates should pay for their own election, but there should be a limit. I totally agree with that. Posters very interesting, because on council we've got a limit, a maximum of 50 posters. And I think that's the way to go, sort of limit the posters, because you may like them or you may hate them, but it's surprising how many people you meet or door knock and they say, oh, I saw your poster, it reminded me there's an election on, because, well, just having the Pembroke election, there's not a lot of coverage, and I'm sure you'd all agree with that. And I still believe that, you know, I thought there'd be, even though I'm very pleased you came, but I thought there'd be twice as many people here tonight. And I think now the message is just slowly starting to get through. Hey, there's an election on, and I think all the candidates agree. I think the Mercury's trying to make it a sort of Liberal Labor sort of debate, and sort of forgot about, you know, there's more of us in this election. So, you know, I think posters do help, but I'd just like to see a limit.
Thank you, John. Sir. Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
My name is Colin Gray. I live in Pembroke and have done so. My family's done so for many years. I'd like to ask, well, first of all, I'd like to commend all the candidates for coming tonight. I think it's great. It's a pity that only one of you can get in. Anyway, good luck to all of you. One thing that I believe is very important in a liberal democracy is access to justice, and it's very important that people should be able to test their legal rights against executive decisions. It's a matter of concern to me in recent years that just about every 10th bill that goes up to the Legislative Council contains what's called a privative clause, which is basically a clause in a bill that shields executive action from review by the courts. It was done, for example, with the pole mill legislation. It was done with the Meander Dam legislation. It was done with the nation building legislation. It seems to be almost chucked in now as a matter of course. I'd like to ask each member what their general policy would be towards privative clauses in bills.